folks. Welcome to this version of River Valley's Unified Union School District. And I actually have an agenda, and again, I've probably lost it. Thank you, buddy. Okay, call the meeting to order. Additions or deletions to the agenda. The only thing I just told Anita is that we're going to move her communications report down to right after we discuss and set up the budget meeting summary content, which should not be all that long into the meeting. Yes, thank you. Okay, so members of the public, you're here first.
Been here since 5 o'clock.
For what? Oh, these are the same old people that come to every meeting.
The same old.
Same old.
Who's got the name tags?
Yeah, I don't have that.
He knows who we are. He wants to know who the
This
audience
is the first meeting I didn't have them. The last
Okay.
4 meetings I had them.
Folks in the audience, please raise your hand and wave at Peter and tell him your name.
Okay.
Marco Tellini.
He's our treasurer.
Why don't they tell me?
No, we're doing,
Oh,
we're just the
public. Oh,
audience.
the public.
Go ahead,
Me?
please.
Teneale, T-E-A-N-I-L-L-E, Cutler.
Thank you for coming to a meeting. Have you ever been to one before?
I have, it's been a while though.
Oh.
It's been over a month.
I'm busy with the transportation needs.
Oh. Sir?
2 months maybe.
Me?
Yeah.
Mark Schauber.
Anita?
Anita Raphael.
Good, thanks.
Raphael. Wasn't that one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello.
Go ahead.
Peter, do you need me? It's Lauren
I got you.
Hartwood. Here for
Okay, and that's Rich, the guy that's not allowed to talk, but if we get him to talk, it puts a smile on my face.
The field producer.
Our producer, our award-winning producer.
Field producer.
Where's that award?
Where is that award?
It's on my account.
Keep forgetting to bring it.
Do you have, I'm sorry, do you have anything from members of the public?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
Do you? That's anybody? Marco, you're here for the warning stuff, right? Thank you. Review and approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2018 meeting, which you all should be. Anybody like to make a motion? I would love to entertain one. Okay, very moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made second to approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2018 meeting. Who did those? Did Peter do those, or did you, Matt? No.
Peter was back. Probably me.
Yes. You guys all ready to vote?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Anita's communications report got moved under discuss and set up budget. So I'm going to ask you guys on the board to take a seat out there because we're going to do a quick presentation. So this is important. This is a River Valley School District tax talk. So I got to pull this down.
No popcorn?
No popcorn. So what usually winds up happening is Rick and I will meet with Bill before a meeting. They just discuss what's on the agenda, make sure we have everything that we need for our meeting, and to make sure that any questions that we think may come up that we have the answers to. If we don't have, we try to get them from Bill. So we've been working on the budget. So last meeting we approved the budget. It was $5 million and some odd dollars and some odd cents. Budgets, those of you that ever saw my old budget presentation, budgets have a lot of factors that create numbers for us that bring us somewhere. So there's all these different numbers that get kind of melded together to give us a tax rate. And this is something that, like you said, Lori at the business office kind of put together for us to kind of explain how this all works. So it's the River Valley School District Tax Talk. So Lori said she would come tonight, but I said, I think I can handle this, and we gave her an extra night off just before the holidays. So she was very appreciative. She's been working hard, and she should get a lot of credit for this. We did make we asked for a few changes in how this got put together, but I think it's really good, and I hope everybody will enjoy it. Yes.
You want us to ask questions while you're going through
No,
it?
can we just, if we could have questions to rock and roll through this, and then
Go
maybe
back.
we can come back. That may be easier.
Okay.
So first page is get into a cost per student. So one of the factors that determines how much your property taxes are is how much your per pupil expenses are. And there's a lot of talk about per pupil expenses when the legislature talks about tax rates and education, and educators talk about education. So it's a real simple procedure. You take your budget that you voted, that's the budget we approved at the last meeting, $5,346,131. There's things called offsetting revenues, and we used to call it revenues other than taxes. And these are things like the school gets a little bit of money for the windmill. The windmill costs us a lot of money. The school gets a little bit of money for the solar array. We get a rent check. There may be, some schools have income from, they rent out their gym, or they rent out their playground, or they have other sources of income. There's also some grants we get that are called categorical grants from the state. They fall under this offsetting revenues. So we have projected $358,256 for offsetting revenues. It's not guaranteed that we're going to make that, but that's our best educated guess at this time. So that gives us the total amount, the amount of tax money that we need, as $4,987,875. Did I talk too long? Is that my clue?
Didn't do anything to it. Lost.
I think it's giving you time to make your phone stop making that noise.
Can I kill my phone?
Well, because it's going to elevate my blood pressure.
It's elevated my blood pressure. So anyways, no signal.
Please stay mine.
Just sleep, doesn't want to wake up.
So,
Okay, I'll put it up there so you can turn it back on.
Okay.
let's go with
I was
Breaking
gonna
Bad.
say it's
folks.
just dying.
Is that, Bill, or Matt, is it not?
No, it's nothing you've done or anything
You
like
got
that.
it.
You're up, you're up. There it is. Good job.
Okay, so equalized pupils, cost driving factor.
Yay.
Good job.
So our best educated guess right now is there's 282.15 equalized pupils. So I always joked at town meeting in Dover that 0.15 student is going to cost us more to educate than all the other students together, and it always depended on what part of that student you got. If you got the head, it may not be as hard as if you got a leg. But it's just a number made up by the state. And what they do is the state takes all your pupils and they put them into a big pot and they weigh them. And when they say they weigh them, they say, oh, if you have English as a second language, you require a little bit more, so we're going to weigh you at 1.2. And they used to give a big weighting for high school students, so they do all that. And then they divide that big number by 100,000 because they never wanted more than 100,000 students in the state. And they come out with this membership number here. It's a number that the State Department of Ed comes up and gives us. They're supposed to give it to us by December 15th. It's now December 17th.
Yep.
They haven't given it to us. It doesn't look like we're going to get that till sometime in the middle of January. There's been some problems with the numbers. So we feel that this is a very conservative number, that it shouldn't be any lower than this. It may be a little bit higher. So you divide the number of students into that education spending, which is your total budget less offsetting revenues, and you come up with $17,678 per pupil. Next slide. So then we have to see if we're in the penalty box. So a few years ago, I think it was under Governor Douglas, they wanted to make sure that we didn't spend too much money. So what they did was, he said they had a threshold. If you spent over that amount of money per pupil, then what they would do is they would tax you at twice whatever that amount over that per pupil spending was. Luckily, the number is 18,311, we're at 17,678. So easy elementary math says we're under the number, so there is no penalty, so that's our cost per student, 17,678. It's kind of a useless slide, but just in case you hear that, because there's a lot of districts that wind up going over that and go into the penalty box. It's kind of like a luxury tax like baseball has. And pardon? Okay. So anyways, that's that. So we're still good. Next slide. So our cost per student translates into a unified tax rate. And what we show is the cost per student is 17,678. That's our cost. The state has an average yield, and that was set on, it was recommended by the tax commissioner, I believe, at $10,666. That number is not set in stone either. That has to be voted on by the legislature. So you take the 10,000 and then you come up with the unified tax rate per pupil divided by the yield, which is $1.66. So that would be the tax rate if nothing else factored into your tax rate. However, because we voluntarily voted yes to join forces, we get an 8-cent buy down for this year. Next year it'll be 6 cents, 4 cents, then 2 cents. Other districts that didn't voluntarily merge, they don't get that 8 cents. So that's kind of one of the reasons why the merger maybe didn't look as bad as it may have been or could have been. So that gives us a unified tax rate of $1.58. But that's not what you're going to pay for taxes, because we have another number we got to go to. Next page. Who does this tax rate affect and how? So this tax rate affects every person who either is a homeowner, a renter, a retiree, parents, guardians, grandparents, and others from the town of Dover and Wardsboro. Homestead property tax is based on a house and 2 acres, but there is income sensitivity percentages, and not to totally confuse you, but there's a whole nother formula that deals with income sensitivity. The legislature sets an income sensitivity just like they set a homestead tax rate, and then depending on the budget you vote over the $10,000, that per pupil amount, the base amount, then that percentage goes up. Some years in Dover it's been as high as 2.5. Rick, do you know what your income sensitivity number runs at?
No, it's usually been a little over 1. I mean, it's vacillated anywhere from like, I think it got down to like 0.87 at one time, and it's gone up to 1.25. So
okay,
it's somewhere in that range.
So that number varies, and that's the number that if you multiply that by your income, is you should never pay more than that amount of money towards your house and 2 acres. But then there's other factors too, because it's everybody in your household. So if you have your child as a high school student, but he has a really good job and made $5,000 that year, that counts towards your income. If you have your parents living at home with you because it's your parents have whatever reason, their income counts. It's everybody's income in your house. And renters paid either through income sensitivity or technically, the landlord probably figures in his taxes into the rent. Next slide. So we have a unified tax rate of $1.58. Then it's multiplied by your CLA. And the CLA is commonly known as the common level of appraisal. So what happens is every year your listers send to the state of Vermont a grand list. They say this is what we think all the property in the town of Dover and all the property in the town of Wardsboro is valued at. The Wardsboro listers do Wardsboro. Dover has a tax assessor, and that person submits this list. The state looks at the numbers and says this is where we think you should be, this is where you're at, and you come up with a common level of appraisal. So right now, they say that in Dover, we're at 103.84%, which basically says that everything in Dover is valued 3.84% higher than it should be. If you were at 100, it's 1 for 1, it would be even. Wardsboro's even a little higher, they're at 109.33. Again, we'll get these numbers from the tax department, and they'll come out usually in the middle of January. So these are last year's numbers. They usually don't vary that much, 1 or 2 points either way, unless you have a major reappraisal. There are some towns that we've seen that are down at like 50 and 60%. So they have their unified tax rate may be $1.58. theirs is gonna go up, because if they're at 50%, you double that number. Because we're all higher, our number's gonna go down. Next slide. So here is in Wardsboro, and this goes back, FY19, the yellow and the blue, that's currently what you're paying for a tax rate in Wardsboro. Wardsboro, you're at $1.37. If you go back to FY15 on the bottom, you can see you were 47, 48, 48, 41, 43. This tax rate that we're showing you is with the CLA should be around $1.43. But there are two contributing factors to have that real low number there, that $1.37. But I'm not going to tell you what it is because we got to go to the next slide. And we're going to do Dover. And same thing if you look at Dover. You know, back we're $1.49, $1.50, $1.50, 48. Last year $1.46. This rate projects to be at $1.52. Those of you that don't have the pleasure of coming to the Dover town meeting, school district meeting, we kind of shoot for a tax rate because we've used our reserve funds pretty fluidly over the last 20 years. So we tell the voters this is a tax rate we're going to shoot for. So you can see we've tried to shoot for around that $1.50 for the last few years. But last year it went to $1.46. But there was two contributing factors. We're going to tell you about them next. Dun, dun, dun. Suspense. Contributing factor number one, in Dover, we moved, we went from $1.62 to $1.51 because we used because we used some reserve fund money to lower our prices. And in Wardsboro, you reduce your tax rate from $1.49 to $1.42 because, next slide, Dover moved $191,177 from reserve funds into our operating budget, brought the rate down, and in Wardsboro, they used $81,000 of reserve money to bring the tax rate down. But Dover, again, we were shooting for the $1.50. The second big thing that happened, and this happened after we had to submit our budgets to the state, so in Dover, we probably would have been at that $1.50 if this hadn't happened after the filing had to go in. So there was, I don't know if you guys all remember, and Laura probably does because she lived it, the legislature had a big fight with the governor, and they were arguing over taxes and rates. So the governor proposal found $58 million in one-time money to avoid an increase in property taxes. So that changed the yield from $9,842 per pupil to $10,160, driving down the tax rate, but it was one-time money. And I don't remember where the money was from. Was it tobacco money?
No, it was from the federal tax cuts and reshoring of dollars from overseas.
So that happened. So there was two factors last year that brought the rate down. Remember, last year's rate was the lowest since 2015. So if you go to the next slide, what that did was that brought the Dover rate from $1.51 to $1.46, and it brought Wardsboro down from $1.42 to $1.37. So if there happens to be 50-some odd $million floating around Montpelier comes book time, you never know. So if you go to the next slide, so the potential unified tax rates would be $1.58 before reserve funds applied. If we were to take $180,000 out of our reserves, and if you look at the bottom, the projected reserves between Dover and Wardsboro are $1,082,000. We can bring that tax rate down to $1.52, and then using the CLA, which is that next slide, it would make the tax rate in Dover at $1.46 and $1.37 in Wardsboro, which would keep the rate at what it was last year, which was artificially lower because of the governor bringing that $58 million in. So again, this is one of the frustrating things about Act 60 and Act 68. Don't skip forward, because you could double your budget. You could take your $5 million and go to $10 million, and if the governor found a whole bunch of money and there was a bunch of reserves and we had a bunch of income coming in, some really rich person in Wardsboro died and left the River Valley School District $5 million to be spent in 1 year, the amount you budget doesn't really have an effect on the tax. It has an effect on the tax rate, but the big things are how much do you bring in other income, what are the CLAs, and what other factors are contributing at the state level, which includes the yield and any type one-time money, and what they actually set the residential tax rate at. So if you go to the next slide, it talks about variables. Yield can go up and down. You know, the yield is recommended, but it's not set. That's set by legislature. The per pupil threshold is currently set at 18,311. That usually doesn't move. And that's usually, there's a formula they use, they base it on percentages. So I don't think I've seen that move much. I don't know if Laura remembers it moving at all or Matt. The equalized pupil count at 282. If that were to go down, that would change our rates a little bit. If that goes up, it changes them. Again, we won't know that till sometime in January. And the common level of appraisal, we should know early on, but you know, Wardsboro was at 108%. If you drop to 106, but you guys haven't had a reappraisal this year, did you?
No, I don't think they're doing one until next year.
Yeah, so usually, like I said, it's usually at reappraisal time when you see the biggest move. I don't know, Marco, since you've been treasurer, we've been at 102, 103, 104-ish.
Yeah, in that
maybe
range.
a penny up or down. And then the governor and the legislature, you know, what do they vote on? You know, if they all of a sudden decide that every school should, you know, install, I don't know, a bicycle for every kid or a car for every student or something.
Childcare on premise.
Childcare on premise, there you go. There's all sorts of things that can change that. One of the big things that the legislature is going to discuss this year is a statewide insurance, health insurance for all staff, all teachers. You know, that could make some changes. You know, that could either up or down. That could save us money or it could cost us money depending on what they decide. A few years ago, the legislature voted to have a one-time payment made every time you hire a new teacher towards a retirement fund. So there are different variables that are all beyond our control. And actually, when you look at our budget, and we discussed this at budget time, a lot of that's beyond our control also because we can't set the secondary rate. We just pay what they tell us to pay for most of the schools. Special ed, we don't really, a plan's written, budget's put together based on that plan, and the SU divvies it up. So there's a lot of things that are beyond our control. And when you get down to what we actually control, and we had that graph on the budget stuff last meeting, you know, out of the whole budget, it's like less than 20% or 25% we actually control. So are there any questions on any of these slides? And I have copies for everybody, but they're, you know, they're in black and white. But does that make sense? Did it confuse anybody? Did it help anybody?
It was excellent.
It was good? Okay. Are there any questions about it? Go ahead, Laura.
I got no question.
Anybody? Did we do good? Okay, excellent. Yes.
The 282.15, is that,
The equalized pupils?
is that every student in Dover?
No, what it is it used to be called a weighted average daily membership. So you submit every day. Well, things are changing a lot. That's one of the things we're way ahead of the curve. That's that conversation you and I and Lori had. Lori's using the new systems, the new business management systems that the state has decided that everybody should be on, so we're all going to be on the same system now. So what that's doing, though, is that's creating some additional work because we can't use the old codes, and there's different categories and stuff. If you guys remember when we were looking at the budget, there were some numbers that didn't make sense to us, or there were some descriptions that didn't make sense. It was Board of Ed service. It was like board members or something, but it was really for the treasurer and for the clerk because they didn't have a category for them. So Lori's on this new system, and part of that system is supposed to, every day, they tally up the total number of students. They send a census up to the state. And I think what's happened is with them changing over in some schools on the new program and some on the old program, it's getting really confusing up there. So they haven't settled that number, but it's based on the total number of students in a building. Then there's weighting factors, you know.
Okay. Like you said before.
Yep, and then they take all those numbers, they divide it by another number to come up with a weighted average daily membership for each building. And that's why I say, because, you know, we're at 282.15. Again, we don't have a 0.15 student in here anywhere. So it's, you know, it's a made up number, but they use it to figure out their budgets. So, I think at one time, when they first went to Act 60, there was like 100,000 students in the state. So they used that as kind of the benchmark, and they always wanted to come up with that number, because that was the only way they could really compare tax rates and expenditures year to year with the schools.
So the small school grants that we were.
Those are-
That the other income?
Yeah, that's that income other
Okay.
than taxes.
Which is not called small school grant.
No, it's a merger support
Merger
grant.
grant.
But that's, again, all those schools that were forced to merge,
Right.
don't carry that forward. We carried that forward. We both had them, both Wardsboro and Dover. And I think Wardsboro's was like $70,000 or $80,000, which is a teacher.
Right.
You know, so we get to keep that. And Dover's had been down like 20 or 30.
Yeah.
But then also you folks, Wardsboro had some phantom students. Your population had been declining. Ours had been growing, so that's why we were losing our small. But we also, that helped bring us up in our numbers, so. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay, I have made 9 copies of it. So if you want to take these, if they're not the greatest copies, but they've got one for each board member. I got 3 to pass out.
Electronically?
Matt, do you have this electronically? Matt can email it to the board.
Do you like that?
I would like it only
Only
Okay, so there's some paper copies and Matt will email it to everybody. Yes,
Do you want me to attach it to the blog site?
yes. You guys okay if we put that on the blog site? Okay, so let's get back up to the table.
I don't
So
understand.
the reason we did that was,
Stupid. Here's my plan. Yes, thank you. Here's my plan. Every day the school bus stops at a different person's house. And that day, that person has to run out and take $100 bills to the back of every kid, and then they can get back on the bus and go to school. And every day, it stops at a different person's house, and you never know, it's gonna be your house.
Have your money ready.
It's $100 a day per kid.
so the next thing we had, and I thought Andy was gonna be here, so I don't know if something happened. I've got the warning for our meeting. It's 3 pages.
Read desk.
Okay, there's, I think, 3 or 4 comments left. So this would be the warning for the 2019 River Valley Unified School District. Legal voters of the town of Dover and Wardsboro, Vermont are notified and warned that pursuant to Title 17, Section 2655, they are to meet at the Wardsboro Town Hall in Wardsboro, Vermont on Tuesday, February 12, 2019 at 7 p.m. to act upon the following articles, to wit, and Articles 9, 10, 11, and 12 to be voted by Australian ballot at town meeting in Dover and Wardsboro on March 5th, 2019. The polls will open for Australian ballot at 10 a.m. and remain open until 7 p.m. on town meeting day, March 5th, 2019 in Dover and Wardsboro. So Article 1, these will be voted from the floor. So elect the moderators to serve for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020. And the second part of that is to set a stipend of $200 for the moderator. Any questions on that article? To elect a clerk to serve for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30, 2020, and to set a stipend of $2,400 for the clerk. Any questions on that? Andy asked for a bigger stipend for the first year because of the voting and because we're voting the ballot by voting the budget by Australian ballot. So he said we would definitely revisit, we could revisit that next year. To elect a treasurer to serve for fiscal year July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020, and to set a stipend of $2,400 for the treasurer. Marco is currently our treasurer and would be willing to serve again. One of the things is this treasurer does require a little bit of work because twice a month he has to review financials and approve payments. And we checked around and $200 a month seemed to be a pretty fair stipend, and Marco was willing to serve again if nobody else wants to at that stipend. So, any questions on that article? So if it goes this well in Wardsboro, we'll be golden. Article 4, to elect 3 auditors to serve for the fiscal year July 1st, 2019 to June 30, 2020, and to set a stipend of $200 per auditor. So when we were meeting with Bill and Lori, Bill said that somewhere in statute it says we have to have auditors. There's not a lot for them to do, but they can audit the books that they want. So that would also be from the floor. That's a position we can elect from the floor. So I put it in there, so if anybody knows anybody that wants to play auditor, please make sure they come to the meeting. Any questions on Article 4? Article 5, so the voters of the River Valley Unified School District set the annual stipend for school directors at $2,000, the chair at $2,500. And those are the numbers that we've been currently using at Dover, and we budgeted a little bit short, and we budgeted for that, but it's only $500. Article 6, so the voters of the River Valley School District set the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at $17,540 for the 2019-20 school year. So schools are not required to submit their tuition rates until the middle of January. So what we did was we put in this number the most accurate number we could get from Burton. Because this is being voted from the floor, if we get a different number from Burton, we can ask for a friendly amendment on this article. So if it comes out less, we can drop that down a little bit. If it comes out more and we want to do that, we can ask for an amendment to increase it.
When does Burton come out with their numbers?
I think they're required by law by the 15th of
Yeah, I
January.
haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
And do they tend to be higher? Is that why?
No,
you said that?
it's funny. Most of the time they're lower than Twin Valley in Dover. For Twin Valley and Leland and Gray tend to be higher or about the same rate. Brattleboro seems to be a little bit lower. But there's a time when Brattleboro was the highest one tuition for Dover. But for public schools, for public high schools, we have to pay the amount no matter what it is. So
I see.
if a child wants to go to Burlington High School
Right.
and if the tuition is $29,800 per student, we have to pay.
Gotcha.
The law says that the electorate shall annually determine the rate for private and independent schools.
I see.
The state sets a rate, and that's the average of all the public high schools in the state. And we used to pay that in Dover a few years ago. We had a petition to pay the Burton rate, and that allows all students from Dover to attend Burton. And then last year, Wardsboro did the same thing. So that's why we put it in again, because it's not something out of the ordinary, it's what we're both doing now.
Okay.
But the voters can change at it, the annual meeting. And this
can be changed from before.
right, and that can be changed because it's not voted on by ballot. Article 7 is shall the voters approve mileage reimbursement, the federal reimbursement rate for the month in which mileage occurred. So board members, if they go like to Leland and Gray, or if they if there's a trip to go somewhere to see what the Wardsboro focus may be, and a couple board members go and they take their own car, they can be reimbursed for their mileage, and the federal government sets a monthly rate based on the average cost of fuel and how many miles, and so we found that was just easier than just to set an unrealistic number that we're just guessing at. Everybody good? Article 8, shall the voters authorize the school directors to withdraw money from the capital reserve fund to offset the homestead tax rate, but not more than $200,000. So if you remember back to our slides, we said 180,000 should get us the same tax rate as both schools currently have for this year. We put it at 200,000 in the warning, just in case something changes. Remember, we talked about the number, the student number, that 282.15 could change, the yield could change. It just gives us a little bit of a wiggle room. In Dover, we've been doing this every year where we make a recommendation, but we've never recommended more than a third of the reserve money because there are some diminishing returns. If we took that whole $1 million and offset the budget, you wouldn't go down in half the price. You may go down to $1.20. But then you don't have the ability, if next year we feel that there's going to be X number of students in the high school, Well, if a family moves in with 22 high school students at $17,000 each, we're going to be over budget by a couple $100,000. Having a reserve fund allows us not to get into trouble, not having to borrow, not having to pay interest. And believe it or not, in Wyndham Central, there's only 2 schools with reserves, and it's both Wardsboro and Dover. So we, congratulations to Wardsboro and Dover for putting some money aside so we have the ability to do something. Or if all of a sudden the roof needs emergency repairs because the wind takes it off, there's money there that we don't have to raise everything in taxes. So then the next 4 articles are going to be voted by ballot, and we've kind of hashed these out a lot. We've been discussing these for almost a year. So Article 9 will be, shall the voters amend Article 13 of the Articles of Agreement, striking the last 2 sentences of the first paragraph, which will allow the unified district to vote its annual budget from the floor at their annual meeting. So we both discussed this at the Dover and the Wardsboro School District meetings. We discussed it at our annual meeting last year, and pretty overwhelmingly, I think everybody wanted to see that. So this is how we do it formally to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's. Any questions on that? Article 10, voters change the method of voting for board members in Wardsboro by amending Article 13 of the Articles of Agreement, replacing the last paragraph with the following language. Elections of Unified District Board members shall be conducted by Australian ballot in Dover and from the floor in Wardsboro, with each town electorate choosing the board member from their town. Any questions on that? So there probably wouldn't be a school district meeting the night before. This would probably have to be done in Wardsboro, your town meeting, the following, on town meeting day. Everybody good with that? Article 11, shall the voters approve the school board to expend $5,346,131, which is the amount the school board is determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,678 per equalized pupil. So those 2 numbers should look real familiar. We should have just seen them somewhere. Everybody good with that? And lastly, to choose unified school district officers for the following positions: as school director in Wardsboro for 3 years in Dover. So this year, Rick is up in Wardsboro and Laura's up in Dover. They're all 3-year terms now. In Dover, we have a 3-year terms, 2-year terms, 2 3-year, 3 2-year. But because there's 3 members from each town, and each town is specific to only vote for their members. That district that got formed in Brattleboro, there's at-large members that the whole district gets to vote for. But when we did the articles, Committee Dwight and I and Laura were on, we thought that was not fair, because then a town with greater voters could, actually have the entire board. We want to make sure that we try to keep things as fair and equal as possible. So those 4 will be voted on at town meeting, so we won't know the results of them until sometime in March. And then any other business that may legally be addressed, so we thought we would review our work and location, review the work done by the board to this date, review the work calendar of the board of directors through September 2020, and review of the Wardsboro school focus. So Bill hopefully will be there. Now I know Bill met in Wardsboro last week, and were you there for that?
I was.
Just a couple.
For the review.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were just
4
4 of us.
Lauren, me, Danielle, and Tammy.
So I
Oh, and
thought,
Laura Smith.
I thought it was
that's
at
right.
7. So I
No.
showed up late. So for the next night, there was 2 of us for Bill's presentation.
Okay.
So anyways, he's going to do that. And then any other concerns that may legally be discussed. And then shall the voters adjourn and reconvene at Dover and Wardsboro for Australian ballot voting on town meeting day. So what we need to do, if everybody's in agreement with these articles, we would need to make a motion to approve the articles as presented. And then I have a signature page that we need to fill out. So is there any questions on that? Anything anybody would like to see different?
Can't believe it's.
Do you have to set a meeting for the following year? Do you have to set a meeting date for the following year?
We voted at our annual meeting to have the meetings be the second
We
Tuesday.
already did, okay.
So that, I believe that takes care of us from here on out unless we want to change it. Because we specified odd years are in Dover and even years are in Wardsboro. No, odd years are opposite.
Yep. This is excellent.
So you want to make a motion, Dwight?
Sure. The motion to approve the warning of the 2019 River Valley Unified School District Annual Meeting.
Second, anybody? Second. Or seconds it, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? So I'm gonna pass around a pen and one copy for everybody to sign. Carrie, I'm gonna move you back a little bit so we can get Anita out of here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to warn this. So one of the reasons why I wanted to, hopefully that we could get through this tonight, was I think the next 2 months, or the next 4 meetings, 5 meetings, we need to really start selling this and getting people to understand how the budget works. Because the budget, if you do just look at the bottom number, the budget is up, how many thousand? Yeah, what's 300 and something $1,000. But that, you know, we believe the tax rate can be the same. I think that's gonna, again, a lot of people don't understand that it doesn't really matter how much it's up or down, because it could have been cut $300,000 and it wouldn't have changed, it wouldn't have brought the tax rate down necessarily. So one of the things we need to do is get the warning stuff out. And it seems to be the Buckettville News is very important to the Wardsboro, to getting the word out in Wardsboro. But unfortunately, we have to be like over a month ahead of time because of the way they publish stuff. So with this, Anita, that's why I wanted to wait, because now you've got a warning we can get in at the next.
Right, the next date I send in material that was January 10th for printing on February 1st.
So it'll be out before any of the meetings.
2 weeks, 12 days before.
Yeah. So the other thing is, Leland and Gray does a form like this to send out, and it's used. This one's just a 4-sheeter, so it's got a cover sheet, it's got some stuff on the inside, and it's got a back page. So what I was going to do was,
Their school
pardon?
is preparing for town meeting.
Well, it's preparing for their annual meeting.
Yes.
So what I've got is I've got these to hand out, so take one and pass them out. So we thought that this would be a good start for our notification thing. So we would start with this, and we'd have a cover, and I put Matt and Tammy on the front. So we're gonna get a picture of Matt and Tammy, and then the touchy-feely things I said, like the pictures of students or whatever we want. So I thought, because Anita's always done great for us by media, we'll call it the Anita page. She can pick whatever she wants on the front and go from there. Then we...
She looks nervous, actually.
Well, here's the thing. I got a 4-word email from Bill Anton on this and did not have a chance to discuss it with him.
No,
And then
'cause
he
you need to
emailed me
discuss it with the
this. So I am a little first hearing things for the first time, so I'm trying to pay close attention.
Yeah, so anyways, we're gonna go slow, but, so we'll have some kind of cover page on it. If you look at what I did was on that thing, and if we could pass them around, on the back page is where they use for the mailer. So what we would do is the front page and the back page would look similar, except the pictures would be different. It wouldn't say Leland and Gray, it'd say River Valley Unified School, and we'll have to set it up however we wanna see it. So then inside, there's several things I thought we could, some things we need to put in there and some things I thought. So if you look at the agenda, I had a list. I thought it'd be good to have a 1-page board letter, letter from the board, here's your budget, this is the first go around, this is what composes the budget, everything stays pretty much status quo with the addition of the half-time person in Wardsboro, blah, 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 blah. Superintendent would do a letter like he does. This one actually does have a report of school, board chair and superintendent together. So we could do that if we wanted to, but I figured we'd see how long it is. So I counted a page for the board, a page for the superintendent, and then I thought the River Valley administrators, Matt and Tammy, could come up with a letter to, welcoming to our new school district. We would do a budget summary, so we're not required to post the whole budget, so we can do a budget summary. So this is a summary we've been working off of. So I thought this would be a good summary that we can pass around. So at the last meeting, we looked at this, and Laura had asked for a little bit more explanation. So Lori did some explanations on it, and
So this is the more explanations.
right, this was the one that,
Okay.
this is specifically what Laura had asked for. So we can put this in there because it gives you the overall budget and the budget numbers, and this would suffice. But what it would also have is where you could find the entire budget. So if you want to see the entire budget, go to www.
RVUSD.net.
There you go. So we would do that. There would be the warning for the annual meeting, so there would have to be, 2.5 pages unless we shrink that down. There's a thing called a 3-year comparison. So we're required to do this 3-year comparison sheet in the town reports, and it shows how much we spent last year, how much we're spending this year, and how much we propose to spend, or this budget is. There is no 3-year comparison because there is no River Valley Unified School District yet. So we're not sure what the state's going to require to put us in there, but we got to dedicate a page to something similar to this. So this is kind of where you take your budget, take your offsetting revenues, come up with education spending, take your equalized pupils, come up with your spending per pupil, see where you stand with the threshold, and then come up with a tax rate. So this does not have, this tax rate doesn't have us taking the $180,000 from the capital reserve in. So we would want to do some kind of explanation about that. So what I kind of thought is maybe what we would do is the last page would be what I call page 13 of the of that presentation we just did. So, which basically is the screen where it showed the estimated CLAs and moving $180,000, and here's what your tax rate is. So that would be the last page, and then the back cover, would be your mailing stuff, and then again more pictures of Matt and Tammy. Maybe we can have portraits on the front and action shots on the back of them.
So the note I got from Bill said y'all are gonna have everything to me by January 10th. I have a week to work on it and get it to the printers by January 17th. We have to choose a printer. Susan Haskins at L&D says she works with Springfield, printers in Springfield. I would have to get it back from the printers by the 20th of January, and you all want it out February 1st to the public. Sue Haskins says they don't mail it, actually. They just sort of pass it out around the schools and hand it out in public places, and they put the mailer on there, but I don't know why, because she emailed me today that they do not actually mail it out. So whether they're going to change their plan this year now that they have more towns and more.
Well, yeah, because Leland Gray won't need to do one this year. It'll be
right. It'll be the. So anyway, so I thought that was.
So let's start off with what do we need for a deadline?
So Bill informs me that I need everything from y'all by January 10th. Okay. But let me just back up just a teeny bit. So they're printing this on 11 by 17 paper, 2-sided. Only one side will be the color, and the rest of the insides and everything will be black and white. So the questions are, everything has to be a multiple of 4. So you can do 8 pages, 12 pages, or 16 pages without having any blank pages. So if we could organize our thoughts in terms of 8, 12, or 16, that is helpful. Then it would be folded, and then it would be stapled so that the pages don't fall apart, because you're going to have a whole bunch of pages. And then if you get that much paper, the printers would probably fold it in half. So it would come out looking more like the Bucketville with a half mailer, because it'd be kind of hard to fold that many pages in thirds. So that's just what I know so far.
Okay.
And I am happy to do the layout and organizing.
So let's start. Let's do the first thing first. How important do you folks think, board and public would love to hear from, to mail this to all the possible voters for the first year?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
There are two questions to that,
Yeah.
and one is, do you mail to the voter checklist, or do you mail to the grand list? Since the grand list people may
Okay,
not
so
be
let's-
voters, but
let's
they
just-
are
Let's figure out
taxpayers.
if we're gonna do mailing first.
Okay,
And then we'll determine who we mail it to.
That's a pretty big difference.
Okay,
Exactly.
Well, however you guys want to deal with it. How do you guys, I don't see sending it to the grand list, because in Dover, the grand list, I'm gonna get 6 of them, 7 of them.
Right.
I bet you I don't even need 1. So, voters may be more important because they're the ones that can weigh in on this.
It'll be available
But
electronically
again,
too.
pardon?
It'll be available electronically too.
Right, but how do you get it to people? I think one of the things that came up in all our discussions this fall was there's a lot of concern because this is really new for people. Okay, everybody's used to going to Wardsboro Town Hall Monday night, so Dr. Backus and Carolyn can give you, a chocolate bar if you get the right answer. And, Tuesday morning in Dover for voting on the budget. And they're gonna get there, and people are gonna show up in Wardsboro on Monday night, and there's not gonna be anybody there, and they're gonna be like, oh my God, what happened? So I mean, we discussed it was really important to get the word out. So one of the things is if you mail it to all the voters, or the voter checklist, you should get everybody who could possibly vote, and I think it would get the word out. I understand it's gonna be a little costly, but that's why we got that startup money too, was to get people used to the thing in the beginning. But again, I'm not a board of 1, we're a board of 6, so that's why I'd like to get everybody's input.
if you're gonna mail it, I would probably back up that February 1st date considerably, which means I need everything
Next
like
week.
tomorrow.
Which, we have a lot of stuff here, that's why, but let's get to that. How many people on the board feel it's important? Or is there any comments from the board on mailing or not?
I feel like it's very important the first year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so
Absolutely.
too.
People get it in their mailbox and they look at it. It's like the town report. I mean, people go through it.
And if it's gonna be as thick as it is, people are gonna think it's the bucket bill coming in.
Or so they're gonna just throw it out and read it?
Well, I think we should be sending it out, especially the first year, and to distinguish it, to explain it's gonna look different, and this is why. And then they can be asking questions ahead of time.
Hope.
Right, go into the informational section.
Because those, we would have the dates in there too. Anybody from the audience think it's not a good idea? Would like to argue against it?
I think it's a good idea to create it. I think it's a good idea to circulate it directly to people within the school system. I think it's a better idea to promote that it's available online and people can go online and look at the whole schmear, because I go to the post office almost every day and I can't tell you how much stuff comes out of the little boxes and goes straight in the bin. People don't take it home. I mean, even copies of the bucket bill end up in there like immediately. And so sometimes I think, geez, why are we printing all this stuff? So I think to stack it up at the library, stack it up at the country stores, stack it up in places where people are going to go around town where they can see it and grab it makes sense. But I don't know. I just see how much mail goes in the garbage, and it freaks me out a little sometimes.
So my comment is yeah, I throw that stupid circular that comes in the mailbox, because I have 15 mailboxes I pick up every day. And they drive me up a wall, because once I see one of them, and all I want is a WW sheet to see what tools I should go buy. But I would not go online to read something, but if you send me something, I will take the time to look through, and I always do, because I always want to look for the pictures and see if there's anybody I know. Hey.
My cousin's on it.
Huh?
So, yes, my cousin's on it.
Oh. So, I'll say, hey, there's Rick Thorpe, wonder what he's doing. So, I don't know if it's something, Dover stopped mailing out the town reports and made them available several years ago, because a bunch of them would go in the garbage.
Yeah.
However, I really think for the first time around, I think even if 50% of them get thrown out, that means 50% of them got to somebody that you may not have gotten any other way. I don't know if I would advocate for this forever, but I think for the first time, I would really like to see it.
I agree. I hear Anita's point. I can go with that maybe in year 2 where we're stacking it up, but for this first year,
Yeah, we need to be proactive in the first year. I hear what you're saying, but we gotta get it out there, get it in their mailbox, show we're up in front, and then maybe in a year or two, we can scale it back so people are used to it.
And then if somebody says, well, I didn't know anything, I'm like, you get mad? Yeah, well then, it's not my fault you threw it out.
Yeah.
But in future years, you could simplify the process by mailing out a postcard
Yeah.
to everybody, expand the mailing and say, hey, everybody, it's there going for the looking. And or it's at the library, and or it's available at town hall, and or it's available.
Well, here's all the places we do.
We can go pick one up.
But Carrie just made a really good point too, and that's something we can talk about at the meetings this year. Both at, the River Valley annual meeting and at the informational meetings, that you mailed this, but it's a one-time thing, we believe, or maybe people say they really like it and it's something we want to keep, but that may be a good thing under other business to discuss.
What about putting it under article, although we just signed it?
Well,
Yeah,
that's okay, because we just need to bring it up.
There's a catch-all at the bottom.
Yeah.
My feeling is if people can waste an hour or two on Facebook every day, they can waste 10 minutes going to the website and reading this stuff, so.
But I don't waste any time on Facebook.
Me either. So I have a communications report to give you when you're done with all that.
Yeah, let's
All
get
right.
this settled first.
Okay.
And then that's why I want you here for
Yeah,
this
okay,
input.
I get it.
So you guys, what do you guys all think? That's for the,
Mail it.
Mail it.
okay.
I agree, man.
So we're gonna shoot for a mailing. So what I'd like to do then is there's nothing here that this group needs to approve. If you guys approve the outline I've done, then we just have to say to Matt and Bill and everybody that by January 2nd, you have to have the letters to Anita. And Anita, most of the other stuff is already here. We'll get you copies of it.
And do you have a preferred printer that you choose to do business with? or
Whoever
you
can
like-
print it quick enough and it's gonna give you the least amount headache.
Yeah.
I noticed these have a
may have
postage
an R.
paid from Westchester.
Right,
too.
and I questioned that, and I will get back to Sue Haskins on that, because I thought, what?
So let me go back, because everybody who has their agenda, and Matt, do we have extra agendas or?
I can make some for you.
No. So we have the cover, the board letter, the superintendent, the River Valley administrators, the budget summary, one sheet, where to find it, the warning for the annual meeting, which is 3 sheets, really 2.5, 3-year comparison or whatever Lori supplies us with, and then that slide 13 of the tax talk. So that comes out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8.
We're at 11. So, looks like it's 12.
I've got 8.
They said 3 pages on it.
Oh, 8, 9, 10. 10, so that's an even
12.
number.
You gotta do
Yeah,
8,
it's
12,
gotta
or
be
16.
Oh,
Those are your
so-
choices.
So why don't we go 12?
We have to have a blank so you can mail, right? So
Well,
you can
that's only a
dress
half
up.
page.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the other half of the page can be,
Pictures.
Photos.
yeah, we'll ask both administrators to get us some pictures.
Okay.
Richard,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
there's one thing that I care, well, I should say, there's a lot of things that I care about, but I think they're all outlined in there. The one thing that when we're picking pictures, Matt and Anita, trying to have some things that are iconic or people that are easily recognizable in both towns. I think
You
would
have
be-
to have parental permission too to use them,
Doesn't have to be kids,
What about,
right? If it's kids, we need parental permission to use them.
but I think both schools will have some forms where, but that's why, having Matt and Tammy is great because a lot of people will recognize them.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is tomorrow morning I promised Bill a phone call, so this is what we need, Bill, and he's gotta make sure it happens.
Yeah.
What about a picture from, not last summer, but the summer before with Governor Scott?
Yeah, I don't know who's
Swearing
got
in the
any,
board.
but you may
Initial
have,
meeting.
would there be some at the
there.
paper? Randy was there, though.
I'm
I
sure
already
we have
heard
parents
her.
that have some.
I'll ask her.
Yeah, if anybody can think of, you know what? Anybody, and please show it in minutes, if anybody's got a good picture or knows that somebody has a good picture, why don't they scan it and send it to the
WCSU address.
River Valleys?
Yeah, or just, you all have my personal email.
Okay, so we'll send it to Anita. That's a good idea, though. I think the picture of the governor there with the kids maybe up front would be kind of cool, or the presentation. I'd love to see the cake in there. There we go. Yay, cake.
Do we have the ability to put other meetings coming up for the next couple of.
Yeah, we ought to actually put in the informational meetings in the,
Right, we
Sure.
have some
And,
paper to spare.
You just filled it.
yeah.
But then the other
There's some
half
Yeah.
of the mailing.
because that's right out in their
Yeah,
face.
once I have all the content, I'll know how to
How to do
organize it.
Yeah, that's why we wanted an expert. Okay, so is
Okay.
everybody good with that?
So I guess there's
Yes.
one question or concern with it. So the sheet that's kind of explaining that we're kind of, we're trying to get to a 0% increase. This will be included as well,
Yeah,
obviously we need to vote, well, two things need to happen. The 200,000 has to be approved in the morning for us to be allowed to move it, and then we have to vote as a board to move the 180.
no, we don't have to vote as a board.
We don't have to vote.
The voters give us permission, then we can do it.
Well, to move it at that point, do we have to vote as a board to
No.
move it? No.
No, we voted to do it when we voted on the agenda, on the annual meeting warning.
On the warning.
Right,
No.
we voted to request it. If they give it to us,
They
we're
give
all
us,
done.
they give us the authority to
Right.
move it.
It's just like the budget. We vote the budget,
Right.
we vote to approve the budget to submit. If they vote that budget, then we don't vote on it again. It's a done deal. We just use that as our budget. So again, Dwight, too, this will need some explanation.
Yeah, I
But
just,
that's why we're hoping that people maybe get this, look at it. If they have a question, they can, again, we're going to give them the website where they can go ask questions, and there'll be the meetings to come to, and we can explain this.
And they can go online and see the whole presentation.
Yeah. So that should be a note on this too. so-
well, it does say potential tax rate at the top, so.
Right.
Okay.
Are you good with that, sir? Hang on a second. I'm sorry, are you all set?
Yeah, I think so. I just, obviously, this is our goal for a 0% increase, and that's what we're trying to accomplish, so, yeah.
Sure.
I thought you mentioned a deadline date for materials to be sent to Ms. Raphael.
January 2nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this little? So I think we agreed to it. I don't think we need a motion. I don't think we need to do anything else. Any last chance? Okay, hopefully now your communications, this should be easy.
So, posters, front porch posters are sent out to schools and places as usual. Front porch is always updated with meeting dates and all that. And that's all going on as usual. There's been no incoming questions to the email on anything that we've posted or publicized. So the website is totally updated as usual. Nothing is behind on there. Added to the website at Bill Anton's request was the full WCSU package budget number thing. So that whole thing is on there. The approved River Valley's budget is on there. There's links on the front page and on other pages as well. The charts from the Wardsboro Focus Survey are on the website, but the public comments are not, because Bill Anton said he wanted to discuss those with the board. So on the page that has the two charts, underneath that is a press release that I sent out announcing that their results were in and that they were available, and I gave you all a copy of that some time ago. So I've asked Matt to send me the slides for the wonderful tax talk presentation, which I totally never get, even though I've heard versions of it before. I still don't get it, but that's okay. So I will post that. So I need stuff for the February Bucketville by January 10th. And that would be what you want in the February Bucketville as pertaining to anything. It'll come out on or about February 1st, so I can do a final push of stuff. So we don't meet in the beginning part of January, so maybe y'all could email me. I have a copy of that thing, and tell me what you think ought to be in the February Bucketville. We certainly can say, watch for the thing in the mail, you should get it, or if you didn't get it, go get one someplace. The other thing I need to post the warning online as well.
No, Bill should do that.
Bill's good, but do you want it on the website?
Please.
I'll get that from Bill.
And I would love to see in the Bucketville News. I mean, I think that's why I was hoping to get this through tonight, so that you should be covered for the Bucketville News for...
Right, the Bucketville News shies away from printing warnings of anything, but I will certainly ask if
Okay,
they will
'cause
do
if
that.
not, then I think the big articles, the ones that aren't going to be, that you don't have the ability to discuss, I think the one about voting in the future and voting for board members in the future should be in there, because I think those are things that we don't get a chance to, if people don't come to a meeting, we don't get a chance to influence them.
And the other thing I'll be looking for soon is a work timeline that y'all are planning from.
That's going to be, we're going to start doing that in January.
Right, because people will be looking for a work plan from you from January to July 1 as to where you're going to be for the first.
It's going to be from March. It'll be
March
from
to January?
It'll be from March to yeah, pretty much January, February next year.
To July?
2 years. No, it'll be from this March of 2019 till January, February of 2020.
Oh, you're going to go all the way around the calendar?
We've done a year kind of schedule block.
Right, because I'm always carrying that July 1st date in my head, that's the official date of, that's when the other board becomes
Operational. Well, it's when the school becomes operational.
Exactly.
This board doesn't oversee an operating school
until that date.
Until July 1st.
Right, but you're going to carry your work plan all the way around.
Right.
All right, so
Well, we're going to discuss it tonight.
all right, more stuff from you guys, questions, thoughts, comments, answers. So the important thing is what you want in the February bucket bill for me, and that is due January 10th.
So again, I think the most important thing in the Bucketville News in February is that we're having these votes, both at town meeting, and we're having the meeting and explain whatever you can get in there to explain.
Okay.
Just drive to the website, maybe.
Yeah.
I just sent you 3 pictures.
Huh?
I just sent you 3 pictures.
Yeah.
3 pictures.
Cool.
They're all of Laura.
Oh, I got them. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Anita, you all set then?
Yeah, oh, the other thing is, we're done in March unless you want to renew me. So you have to ask me for a proposal if you want one?
I think what we will do is, so under new business, I was gonna just talk about calendar for next year so that we can start doing that next, because now we've done all the nuts and bolts stuff we need to do. So my thought is, let's come up, because we're gonna have a report on transportation soon that's gonna give us some more work. We're gonna have a report on focus in January that's gonna give us some more work. But I wanna start thinking about the schedule, because I think if you look at the calendar we did last year, a couple months previous to this, we kind of followed that through, and we pretty much hit it head on. So I'd like to have that again, so that people that don't want to come to every meeting, but they're interested in something, they'll know, hey, okay, I don't have to really start paying attention until June when they have the next transportation discussion. Right. Or whatever.
And I've been submitting my invoices and I have been paid, so, and the checks don't bounce.
Wow.
Mark.
RVUSD.net expires February 20th.
$15, $20,
in that neighborhood. I don't know with an operating district whether you want to take over ownership of it.
Can you
versus
just
mine,
renew it for us and submit me a bill and I'll get you paid?
Absolutely.
Does anybody have a problem? Let's keep that for another year. Everybody
Yeah,
okay
I
with
think
that?
that's fine. I think the question Mark is asking is, do we want to transfer
No,
ownership?
let's let you, however you've done it, let's just do it now, that way.
I have no problem with that.
We'll cover you, and then that will be something we need to figure out if we're gonna continue on with.
Okay. You got it.
Right, because I kind of got the impression that when the WCSU revamped their website and homepage and all that, they kind of wanted everything.
Right, so we should be able to take that website though,
The
and
address.
redirect people to where we want to go. So without knowing exactly what's going on for the short bucks, for the $20 or $30 or whatever, I think let's just, people are used to going to it for now. I don't want to lose anybody.
Correct.
I really want to get to this first real, last year we did have an annual meeting, but there wasn't a lot of substance other than setting a meeting date. This is the first time we're going to have a lot of substance, and we've made a lot of great progress because of things like that.
Then one of the things to discuss after the annual meeting will be to review the content of that website and determine how much of it you want to archive and clean up some of those pages. Because they've gotten full of stuff, because we just keep adding without ever archiving anything. So we could take, I don't know, probably at this point, half to 3/4 of that, and just put it in an archive, and it's there but not there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mark.
Thank
So
you.
just drop it in my office or something, and I'll get it over to Bill to get you paid.
Okay, no rush.
Okay. Everybody good? Thank you, Anita.
Okay. And,
Congratulations on your play, too.
oh, we were a hit.
Good. As long as nobody hits you.
No, there were only like, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 empty seats, and we got through it fine, and everybody clapped and nobody booed, so.
No rotten tomatoes.
No rotten tomatoes, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
No,
So
thank
we'll
you.
be in contact. Rick is gonna work on the board letter, he said.
Yeah, anything you send me, I'll start forwarding.
He actually, we discussed it tonight, he paid attention in English class. He had a better relationship with the teacher. Yeah. I think we could both work on it. Matt, so you need to talk with Tammy. We thought a combination letter would be really
I think
cool.
that's a good idea. Some kind of cool pose on the front.
No, portraits.
Yes.
We wanted yours and,
Yes.
No.
okay.
Maybe you're holding like a paintbrush and a pencil or something.
I'm gonna go backwards because Carrie had a transportation meeting.
I'm gonna
Carrie?
scoot then if you don't need me anymore.
No, I think we're good. Unless you
Okay.
want to hear about transportation.
Not
Thanks,
really.
Anita.
No. Thank you. Excellent job. Happy holidays.
Okay, great.
And we'll get something to you in the mail in the next few days. And then anything, like if Matt doesn't send you stuff, let us know and we'll go harass them.
All right, and if you need to, like, have me to run over to the office and sit with you with organizing it again, I'm happy to.
Okay.
No problem. Bye.
Carrie.
So the Transportation Committee, we've had 3 meetings. We met this evening at 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
We met the week before and 2 weeks before that.
Okay, how do I find it?
We had, we didn't have the Dover Road Commissioner, but we had our bus drivers for Dover, we had our bus drivers for Wardsboro. We had
Hey, Anita, are you all good with the dates? I noticed at the end of we have review dates and activities for budgeting and public meetings. You're all good, because that sheet you had was
Yeah, the only thing that wasn't on there was just like one regular board meeting, because I didn't think it was necessary to put in like a regular board meeting, but the info meetings, I didn't bring it. The info meetings are on there, and I think I put some more about meetings in the January bucket bill. I don't remember
Okay.
now, because I did it.
Can I do something real quick, Carrie? I'm sorry. January 21st, I was reminded is a holiday.
Right.
And so Dover Board is not meeting. We're required to have a public meeting so many days before, and the 21st doesn't work. I thought it did.
Okay.
So we're gonna move the Dover Board meeting to the 28th. Can the River Valleys people make a meeting here on the January 28th?
It's already, I can't pull it from the bucket bill.
No, I
because
understand
they've already
that.
gone to print, but,
But it can go in this newsletter thing we're sending, or
Right.
that thing we're sending out for dates.
well, no, because it won't be out.
It can go in this thing that we're just talking about printing and sending out, right?
If we get it out, I mean,
Oh, yeah, because you're not,
it probably won't go out until that week,
okay.
that exact week. If I get it back from the printers by the 20th,
Okay,
and
we'll see what we can do.
and then we have to discuss, where we're getting labels and who's doing the grunt work of who's
Yeah.
sticking and all of that, and whose bulk permit we're using.
Well, that's why I wanted to check with those people, because I didn't know if they did the printing and they had their own bulk rate, because some places will print and mail it for you.
Right.
And all you gotta do is get the labels from the town clerk, and they specify how they want it. And we get it for the fire department as a PDF,
Right.
and then on a thumb drive, and they just plug it in. I would imagine Wardsboro's gotta have the same thing.
I think they might have done it by hand, but Minuteman Press in Brattleboro will do a print and mail.
Yeah, I've done Minuteman, I've used Lotus, we've used somebody up in Manchester, but I like the Minuteman guys.
Okay, well, let's work on that. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so I'll be in contact with you in the end
Yeah,
of the week.
I'm not, I have no plans to travel, I'm
Okay.
around.
Thank you.
Cool.
Carrie, I'm really sorry.
Thank you.
Before she left.
See ya.
Okay.
So the board has also had parent volunteers. Tennille has
Do I
been
need
at
a
3
sign
meetings.
in or
Member from Dover
Right, and
School,
what about kids?
our 2 principals, and West River Transportation. So I think what we've determined is that the transportation issue of what the board has charged the committee to look at where we can add either 10% on or 25% cut of what were the operating costs right now. It was really too difficult to figure that out because, quite frankly, we have an average of members, we have an estimate, or I should say we have the budget from this year of what the budget is for Dover for elementary and secondary transportation and what Wardsboro is using. But there were some other questions about, does that include, gas, and what does that include for field trips? So we weren't really having, it was difficult to compare with actual numbers and budgets. So we kind of looked to that aside and said, all right, is there a way of making things more efficient, right? Because that's probably the bigger question that we're looking for. And right now, it seems that Wardsboro is at the most efficient as it could possibly be because they really combined with the supervisory union, with Newbrook and Jamaica and Leland and Gray to get a bus route that best serves that population, and Wardsboro is part of that and pays based on how many students are using the buses. So they already have a pretty streamlined system of getting their students to Wardsboro and back and getting their second elementary school kids from Wardsboro to the transportation center in Brattleboro. And then through secondary for Wardsboro, how they're using the mover to get students to Twin Valley. So it was hard to figure out how to make...
Leland and Gray, sorry.
Leland and Gray. Well,
How
how
to Twin Valley.
Don't they go onto the mover?
Oh, they go on the mover, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the leased buses, sorry.
So it's hard to figure out how to make that system more efficient by adding Dover kids in the mix, because Wardsboro is really streamlined through the supervisory union to serve that population, that broader population. So you almost need a person looking at all of the schools and the supervisory union to figure out, okay, do we try to add on to that efficiency, or do we break Wardsboro out of that and try to serve just Wardsboro and Dover because we're a new school district? Those are our 2 schools. Those are the population we should be concerned about. It's, it's more than a 3 median, plan. So this really needs to be, I think, a year study with someone at the supervisory union level taking a look at it.
So let me just speak to that
Sure.
real quick. So Johnny's not here. Is there anybody here at the, did you go, Dwight, to the Wyndham Central meeting? So we just voted Wyndham Central's budget last week. You were there, that's right. And one of the things we've kind of bounced around is at the SUs to have a facilities and transportation manager. And that's one of the things Bill's been keeping on the front burner for us is a Wyndham Central. So we agreed that right now the transportation buildings facilities person is a committee of 1. It's from Marlboro, like Celine Romo from Marlboro. It's kind of agreed to do that. So usually they give me permission as chair to appoint people. So anybody that doesn't show up, I make sure they get on the committee. That's why Laura will be on it. But anyways, so they want to have that discussion in March. So I think that would play right into that too, and maybe some members from our committee can also participate in that to see where that goes.
You mean be part of that committee?
Well, still, I think Wardsboro Dover still needs to look at their own thing, but also see how it plays into Wyndham Central also. And again, just so that people know, the reason Dover doesn't participate is because West River said they couldn't, well, not just because we do our own, because West River said they couldn't take us on. They had no more capacity to, and that every year we have to send a letter to the Secretary of Education saying that we're doing our own thing, we're not through the SU, and here's why to get a waiver. And the waivers aren't just rubber stamped, because Pownell had a waiver for a couple of years, and then like 2 or 3 years ago, they got turned down. And there's been several schools that have been turned down. There's not like there's 6 transportation companies in the area that and it's not something the mover can take on, because if there's somebody, and as long as there's a person, even if they can't do it, who does that kind of work, they can't bid on it because they got public funds. That's why we don't pay them a fee, we just pay them, we make a donation. It's not, they don't submit us a bill for what we do with them to get kids to Brattleboro. So I think that's a really excellent thought, that maybe what we should do is get all the, the committee, your committee can work on getting the history and get all that stuff together, and then participate with Wyndham Central and see if there's places that we can be more efficient. Or
there's another issue raised. I mean, I think our committee was looking to say, we need someone that's looking at this for a year long, and it's not necessarily us. It's not necessarily, a board member and the bus drivers and the principals, but a larger group at the supervisory meeting, meaning the superintendent, meaning the treasurer, meaning the principals. It's not really this group meeting each month that's going to come up with this larger capacity issue. That's, we are not working with actual numbers in a budget, and then the issue about asking for West River of, okay, what would it cost if you took over the Dover elementary and secondary, what would that look like? I was cautious about that because I didn't want that to be like a bid, so we're just basing it on mileage and what Wardsboro has, what they pay for West River. So I feel like it's not really this transportation committee, ad hoc committee that came up to do this work. You need really a larger capacity of the superintendent, the treasurer, the principal, the person who might be considering doing the transportation, overall for all of the schools. Those are the people that should be really
okay, so
looking at this.
that has to come through Wyndham Central. So if your committee thinks that that's what should happen,
Yes.
then why don't you come up with a request?
A letter?
Yep, and we can submit that to Wyndham Central when we reorganize in
Okay.
March.
Because part of it is also looking at, we were thinking about the logistics of, okay, well, if we have, our students meeting at a stop where Newbrook then picks up, there are a lot of logistics also, different times that the school starts. And it was much broader than what this committee has access to, really. So,
There were too many variables.
because we were looking at, okay, let's try to make this a more efficient system, and how can we do that? What's the
But
system we have now?
if your committee wants to look at that, we can get you that information.
Yeah, this is something that I think is more of a person that actually their job to do this, rather than some volunteers that are meeting each month. It seemed like a larger, much more difficult question.
Okay. Let's come up with maybe the committee can come up with a letter.
Okay, we could do
That
that.
would, so we won't need it till March when we reorganize.
Okay.
Perfect. Any questions for Carrie on her transportation peoples? Any comments from a transportation person? Oh.
So as far as the recommendation of what you were looking for, I think the ultimate recommendation is to keep it the same as what we were
For this
doing.
year.
Yes, because the idea of where can we save money or where we can spend money, it became very difficult to figure out how can we build in more efficiencies. I guess the easy part would be just cut, and would be cut secondary, almost seemed like, an easy way to cut, but that didn't seem necessarily a great idea, so.
It's a good way to get people to come to a meeting, though.
Yes, it surely is.
It was not a knowledgeable
Yeah.
way of where we can save money, or, put money to add efficient, or make it more efficient, or add more services. I think that was the question. How can we
Yes.
add more services?
Yes, thank you.
And I
Because-
think more services would be added through enlarging and incorporating the supervisor.
Yeah,
Right, so.
yeah. Rich?
Well, why don't we go to her
We had
idea?
two possible ideas of savings, and one was the question about the stipend that we send to the mover for the secondary of the cost that we use for, I guess, pay to the mover for the students that are using that to get to Brattleboro. So that was one area the members were talking about. Maybe that's an area where we don't have to spend that money and save that money. And then also potentially in the AM, if I have this right, using the Newbrook Elementary bus route to bring our secondary students to a kind of central spot in Newbrook, that they would then take an express bus down to Brattleboro instead of two buses going down to Brattleboro.
No. We run our bus directly to Brattleboro from here.
Okay, well, a few years ago, we used to meet the West River bus at like the old quilt barn, log cabin thing.
Yeah.
And they used to ride down from there.
Handoff.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore?
No, so we're trying to think of some efficiencies of, you know, if the bus is going there that's serving New Leland and Gray and Wardsboro and the supervisory, why not?
So instead of two 66-passenger buses transporting 20 kids, it could be one.
Maybe we can have one central spot where we can get the Dover kids over to, and then have all those kids go once down into
Maybe we can even,
Brattleboro.
I mean, that's a logistic thing that you can work on now. Maybe.
Right. I just talked to Bernadine after our meeting tonight, and she's going away with ideas, so.
Oh, that's Todd's
Yeah,
operations
yeah.
lady, right? Okay. Good.
So the board really was, I mean, we were trying to break down what's happening now, and it was very clear Wardsboro is a tightly run machine with the supervisory union to make it as most efficient as possible. So.
Cool. Did you?
I was just gonna add to that, saying that we were, if I'm remembering correctly, we are like 95% staying as is. Matt was saying that they may have to do some reworking because they're stretched to their limit with the two buses. So that may look different. I don't know if that makes a difference, but that was one thing that may potentially change to give some wiggle room for the drivers here in town so that they're not up, they're all the way at their max right now with no room for anybody to get sick or take a vacation or breathe.
We definitely need to figure out a better system for future. You know, maybe we can make things work for next year, but Matt talking about that, you know, feeling kind of strapped where you're having two buses, two routes, two bus drivers alone. If something breaks down with a bus driver sick or a bus broke, we don't have a backup, and that's a problem. So we need to think about either looking at a different system, meaning that we're investing in a new bus, investing in an employee that drives a bus. Maybe that's someone that can be shared in Wardsboro, or we're looking to have someone contract out the transportation for Dover, like they do at Wardsboro. And does that make sense to get involved in the system through the supervisory union that Wardsboro does, or do something separate with just Wardsboro and Dover? I don't know. Those are the larger questions. That involves like numbers and logistics, but that's what I'm saying. For a volunteer board, this really exceeds, I think, the scope and really what we can do. So we will write a letter.
Laura has been chomping at the bit.
No, it's, well, one thing I wonder is about maybe doing an RFP at some point, or just to request for proposals. You know, does anybody have any great ideas? I know we're not overrun with transportation companies. And then the other, I hear you and I remember this discussion, and I know we frequently talk about looking for efficiencies, and I think that's appropriate when we are merging two entities, but also when we are merging two rural small schools. I think often what we are going to find are ways to be more effective than, you know, maybe not efficient, but maybe to bring more to our students.
Yeah,
So.
one of the ideas that the board was talking about is, you know, having a survey from parents and secondary busing, secondary transportation. Maybe we look at Dover provides secondary to one particular school, and Wardsboro provides secondary transportation to another school, and maximize based on the population. You know, where do we send our students? Majority of the students to what school? You know, we don't have a bus going to Burton. Is that something that Dover and Wardsboro campus schools want to have? You know, we can do that. Maybe that's worth the money to do that, to provide that opportunity for students. How many
people use Brattleboro, how many people use Lynn and Gray. So there are ideas of using additional opportunities.
I would urge caution on busing to private schools.
With this, I don't, if I may, that kept getting shot down. You know, we had a lot of parents asking for that. And parents made, you know, education decisions based on transportation. And it got shot down. So for now, if I were to see that come up now, that would get a lot of people upset.
People send their, I don't know how many different schools, but Matt's got it calculated that we send kids to. So, I mean,
You
there's
were told it's a private school, you want to get your kid there.
Well, that's not really
Things are
what
ever
happened
changing.
either. So, you know, again, we can take little bits and pieces of different stories, but kind of when we agreed to give the extra money to Burton, the parents that brought that forth also said no. When the question was asked, are you guys gonna now come back to us next year and ask us for a bus?
But that was
And it
like-
was assured that no, they would never do that.
That was a different generation of parents.
It wasn't that different a generation of parents, because we haven't done it quite yet for a generation, Marco, just because you came in late. But, I mean, just, the thing is, you know, there's more than, doesn't matter, because you know what, it's nothing that
We
we're
can
gonna
always have the
change.
conversation again, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, no, we should
I was
have.
just, my point
I
was
think things should be
caution.
brought up every so often anyways, even if it was overwhelmingly turned down before, because things change. There was a time when we didn't ship a bus to Brattleboro because we had one student who would have ridden it, and we were spending $60,000 to get that bus down there.
So I think that there's a lot of opportunities in the board. We're really interested in trying to break them down, but there were just too many variables to really say, here's one idea, this is going to be the efficiency, or to add more services. There's just too many variables that we didn't have access to the information. So.
Thank you.
I have one question. So Dover has the bus going to, the additional bus going to Brattleboro. This is the first year that you had done that. Was there, is that right?
Yes.
So is it,
Well,
was there?
no, this is the first year of a new plan. We used to run a bus to Brattleboro.
So another, if I understand correctly, there's a mover that goes there in addition to the bus. So is that a bus, a private bus or a company, or is that a bus that you own?
No, it's a bus we
One of the
own.
Dover
One of the Dover
buses.
buses. Have you had a chance to review that a year in and how that is going?
Yeah, that's been reviewed by the Dover board, and we do ask that numbers be kept. But numbers vary too, because if there's no sports going on, you have a higher ridership.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious how that was going for the first year.
About 20, right?
20 max, between 12 and 20,
Right.
pretty regularly.
And again, there was a time when I was on the board that, you know, we were all concerned because if every student who was going to Leland and Gray got on the bus wasn't big enough. The 66 passenger bus wasn't big
Well, I'm
enough.
just curious what the.
And now we don't send 6 students to Leland and Gray, do we?
About 6.
So it's definitely something we looked at, and that was one of the things that was sort of like wobbly at the edges, was like, what does our population look like? We sort of looked at the four biggest high schools near us: Twin Valley, Brattleboro, Leland and Gray, BBA. Like, those are sort of, you know, we know that there's kids going to other schools too, but those are the 4 most talked about. And that was one of the questions, and we didn't really have good numbers about, like, you know, and this year, how many kids are sort of going to each corner, and then, but what does that look like next year? Kids graduating, the new kids coming in. And I just wanted to add with the BBA thing, because I was the one who really brought it up, and my kids doesn't even go there, but just thinking like, okay, we have sort of a Wardsboro campus and 2 schools that sort of are popular off of there, and then we have a Dover campus and 2 schools that sort of go south off of there. So we were talking about effectiveness and like, as these 2 campuses and how can we best, you know, this is new territory all around, so who knows what's gonna happen down the road. It did feel a little, like, I felt like we kept sort of talking in circles around the table, like, we all were kind of like, we don't know how to guide this differently.
Well, it must be tough because, you know, obviously, you know, well, I guess kids get older in secondary, they start driving too, so they don't even get on the bus, you know, and so.
Well, that's what happened too, is
I don't envy you guys
a
trying
lot
to figure
of
this
the
out.
students, you know, were driving. And one of the points Marco made, or was making, is too, people have made decisions where their children go based on available transportation.
I mean, I'm a parent who did that.
Yeah, you know, we did the same thing, you know, my son wanted to go to Brattleboro, then Leland and Gray, but we made them go to Wilmington because that was the easiest for us to get them there. You know, and Brattleboro would have been great, but you know, you can't play sports because we're not driving to Brattleboro, we don't work in Brattleboro, you know, but then if, you know, like Carrie works in Brattleboro, so it may be really easy for her kids because they can get out of school, walk to meet her after work and go home with her if they want to play sports. There was one parent last year on the discussion, you know, wanted a second Brattleboro bus to do a late bus like Twin Valley on it. So, and again, one of the points I think Marco makes really well too is it's all secular, and it's sort of like there's one student that everybody gravitates towards, and if that student decided to go to Burlington High School, you'd have half the class going to Burlington High School, and then we...
To kind of finish my point earlier, even with a bus, I think Burton for us probably was on the far reaches, because it is just far.
Sure.
It's a long trip.
Yeah, bus or a car. And honestly, the mover to Brattleboro has been working out really, really well. Like that's what we
do. You do the mover to Brattleboro, not the express bus?
We do the mover from the saloon.
Okay.
And then they even added a late bus for kids that are doing sports.
For Brattleboro?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because parents went to mover and asked, and they did it. So
you know, there was, like you said, at one time, Brattleboro was one of the big schools. We had a contract with Peoples or Laidlaw, and they would go to Brattleboro, but then there was like one student going to Brattleboro, and, you know, and then...
For a long time. I mean, we had a...
Right, because we had that one student, so we committed to when that student graduated, but we told every parent that this bus is going to end. So, yeah, you have a bus this year or next year, but don't plan it because, you know, there's not enough students, and then again, things change, and we get, what do we got going to Brattleboro now? Is that?
We got about 40 students attending.
So that's one of our bigger.
Yeah.
Right
now, Burton used to have 40 students.
Not very long ago.
Yeah.
Now, what do they have?
Around 15.
Historically, over time, we go about a quarter to 3 public schools and a quarter to all private schools, historically, over time.
What's Wardsboro's numbers look like? Do you have?
I don't know. I know we have my daughter and Barry's daughter are now attending BBA, and they have a pretty large freshman class. We have seven kids from Wardsboro going to BBA right now, and she only graduated with 6. So.
Gained a kid.
Right, we gained a kid. But you know, I don't know if I would be in favor of a bus going to BBA. It's certainly not coming home. They're all coming home at different times, you know. So maybe getting there. Although my daughter just joined the hockey team, and she has to be there an hour before school starts. So that's exciting. So, but anyway,
good job, Dwight.
Yeah, I know, right? Opportunities, right? So, but it's tough. So you know, and again, the kids start driving and everything else. So I don't.
You can't wait for your kid to get his license, and you're
right.
worried about going up and down that mountain in a snowstorm.
Yeah, but we have a strong carpool, and that seems to work. So.
Okay, so let's get off of this because I think basically, Carrie, the overall point is that
conversation.
Yes, it needs a bigger conversation. You're going to send a letter to Wyndham Central on behalf of River Valleys.
Okay, I'll share that with you to take a look at.
Yeah, because we got time, so we'll bring it at the next meeting.
Okay.
And maybe just run it by your committee.
Sure.
And then, so what's going to probably happen is at Wyndham Central, we're going to form a committee. So if anybody from your group would like to be on that committee too, just maybe have them, maybe that can go in the letter.
Okay. Do you know when or where that meeting is?
Well, we're going to talk, it'll be talked about at the reorganizational meeting. It's set up to be on the agenda.
Okay.
And that's usually like the week after town meeting because we got to wait till elections to reorganize. And then we'll wind up having to reorganize again after July 1st. So we may even see if there's enough of the officers left. We may even just see if people just allow the officers to continue serving till July 1st, and then we'll have to figure out what we're going to do in between March and July for what the new Wyndham Central Board is going to look like. Okay, we killed that, I think. But that's a good conversation. And Marco, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have jumped on you.
You didn't jump on me.
Update on the Wardsboro focus. So we went to it. It was about a 10-minute, for us it was a 5-minute presentation.
Ours was about 30 minutes, but people asked questions.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of questions.
So basically, I guess, there was like 66 respondents. There was a good mix, a majority of respondents were from Wardsboro. There was a good mix of parents and non-parents. And Dover had less, but there was a mix of parents and non-parents. And I think over 50% picked a STEM or STEAM. STEM.
Oh, yes, it was
38.
38 out of 69 surveys.
Okay. So I had it, I thought, but I don't have it with me. So anyways, it appears as though that may be the path that they want to go. So what we have set up is in January to talk to Bill about it, so it can be presented at the meeting in February in Wardsboro. And then we will have to make a decision on how we're going to do it. You know, what's going to, remember that when Dover went to IB, we had school visits, we had staff getting training. We did put money aside in the budget for additional professional development. We'll have to see what strengths we have, so there'll be a whole list of things. So I think, I was gonna try to do it tonight, but I may put it off till next meeting, to have a kind of the map of where we're going, and then for the calendar, and part of that's gonna be, you know, working on the Wardsboro focus. Remembering too that from the time it was presented, the idea was presented to the Dover board to when we actually got to be an IB school was 5 years.
Right.
So it's not something that's going to be able to happen overnight, but this is, there's STEM and STEAM seems to be a little bit, there seems to be more schools like that around. And there was a really good video that went with the program. You shaking your head no?
Bill said we would be the first in the state of Vermont to be solely STEM or STEAM.
Right, but there's more, I think, STEM and STEAM than IB schools around the country to choose from,
Sure.
or to look at, and there's a lot more information about it. So hopefully it's not going to be, maybe not as difficult a night. And it's also not a certification. It's not like you're going to IB to get their blessing, you know, it's kind of, we can set.
Well, there's also not a program to follow.
Well, that's what I'm,
Right.
yeah, that's where I was trying to go. So hopefully it'll be something that won't be quite as long, but again, it's not going to be starting September 1st. So, review dates and activities for budgeting and public meetings. So I just grabbed the calendar to make sure I'm on the same page with everybody. So what we have is January 7th is our next board meeting, and that'll be in Wardsboro. And then we have we're talking about January 21st, but if everybody's okay, we'll move it to January 28th, and that'll be in Dover, and we'll use that as our public meeting, annual meeting, to move forward. And then February 12th, pardon?
That means we don't have a meeting on the 21st?
No, there'll be no meeting on the 21st. It'll be the 28th. February 12th is the annual meeting. Do we want to try to meet that first Monday in February in Wardsboro? Or do we want to just go to the annual meeting? Huh? You won't be here?
The first Monday.
What is the first Monday?
Of what?
February.
Oh.
February 4th?
Oh, I shouldn't say that.
Do we want to meet February 4th? If we're gonna, the only reason I might suggest that we do it is if we're gonna meet the 28th in Dover to discuss the warning, if something comes up at that meeting that we want to, maybe we just do it as an, you know, we'll advise people, but keep it open if we need it for something that comes up.
Well, and sorry, if you meet on the 4th, which is the first Monday, the third Monday is the 18th, which is President's Week.
Another holiday.
Yeah, so just FYI.
So why don't we plan on meeting on the 4th? Is President's Week your vacation week?
It is.
I got nothing to say this time.
Would that February 4th meeting be in Wardsboro?
Yes. Okay, so why don't we just, we know we're going to meet on the 4th, I mean on the 7th. We'll pencil in the 28th, or we'll definitely meet the 28th because we have to have that meeting for the annual meeting. And then the February meetings we'll leave open for now. How's that?
Yeah.
we'll definitely, we'll leave the fourth guy penciled in, but we definitely won't meet on that February vacation one, because if there's no school, I'm sure Carrie's going south to warmer climates.
I won't be, but
You won't. You disappoint me. I thought you were gonna take me with you.
no, it's nice not to have a meeting that week.
Oh. Okay, is that good with everybody? New business. I was gonna do the calendar, but I think if you guys are okay, let's put that off. And I'll try to rough it in with Rick. And then we'll present it at the next meeting.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So, if anybody, does anybody have any other new business? Okay, I do need an executive session for an update on contractual.
We'll be going to executive session for an update on contractual.
Do I have a second? Barry seconded, Laura made the motion, all those in favor say aye. Okay, just so, we won't be making a decision, so you have our next meetings and we'll probably just come out and be adjourning, but if people want to wait, they can, and we'll go next week.